I have wanted to no-hit Elden Ring for a long time, and now that the DLC finally has a release date, I decided it was a good time to actually commit to doing it. If you don't know what a no-hit run is, it's very simple. You just... don't get hit. I'm also going to keep track of how many centuries this process takes me, so if anyone watching this video wants to try this as well, they have an idea of what they're in for. But first, I must force myself to memorize an ungodly number of steps before even being able to attempt this run. Learning from last time I had to learn a route when I was speedrunning Dark Souls 3, I had prepared the save organizer and practice tools in advance since I knew that they would be invaluable. I can use the save organizer to make a save state before every key moment in the run, which I can go back to and practice, and I can use practice tools to do things like turn off all damage so I can fight bosses endlessly, see enemy poise, force an enemy to repeat an attack, and various other things. Now I will attempt to summarize the interesting parts of this over 2-hour long run. First is the setup, of course, and this is unironically over half the playtime of the entire run. The major things collected in this hour-plus long stretch are all the smithing stones required for a plus 12 weapon. The iron balls, our weapon of choice, which I'll get to in more detail later. Golden Vow, which gives us a pretty sizable buff. Flame Grant Me Strength, which gives us an even larger buff for a shorter duration. The Fervor's Cookbook, which allows us to craft sleep pots, which are going to be useful for Godric, Fire Giant, and Godskin duo. The Physic, along with the charge attack and strength tier. The Axe Talisman for 15% charge attack damage, and Radagon Saw Seal for 20 free levels. Cragblade, which increases the damage and poise damage of our balls. 60,000 runes from the Draconic Tree Sentinel, obtained in a very honest and fair fight. Assassin's Gambit, which gives us a giant stealth buff, helping us trivialize almost every running section from this point onwards. Margit's Shackle, which we get from killing patches, and no, this is not an attack, it's a debuff, it doesn't do damage, grow up. And finally, the Blue Dancer Charm from the High Road Cave. Excellent, time to get hit on Margit. Setup can really kill the enjoyment of no-hit running, especially if you don't have the patience or time to deal with your run dying over an hour in after only fighting 2 bosses. Oh, fuck this game! I'm so done. It gets slightly better the more you do it, since you can basically go into a zen state of autopilot where you go comatose for the entire setup process and wake up when you get to Margit. And it also helps if you have a second monitor to watch something while you're doing it, since after you've done it 3 or 4 times, you really don't have to look at the screen anymore. But it's still super demoralizing when you get hit just after finishing your setup and you have to do the whole thing again just to get back to where you were. Oh, that's such a shame. Once you do finally make it to Margit though, it's clear how all that setup pays off. Shackle. 1, 2, 3. Riposte. And he's dead. Okay, nice. This is where we first get to see the insanity that is the iron balls. These things are absolutely cooked. They're an unbelievable combination of raw damage, speed, and poise damage, allowing you to crush almost every boss in just a few attacks. You know, it's funny, because I walk into the fight and I'm like, oh, I'm probably gonna have to dodge some attacks, and then I hit him and I'm like, oh yeah, I have 1 billion damage, and it just doesn't matter. The one downside it has is its poor range, which can be somewhat problematic on bosses that are already awkward to hit, like Radahn. Once you get used to that one quirk though, you're left with one of the strongest and most versatile weapons in the entire game. Godric is a very similar story to Margit, although to make up for the lack of a shackle and not quite meeting the stat requirements for Flame Grant Me Strength, we use an Exalted Flesh we picked up from a camp near Banal earlier, and a Sleep Pot in Phase 1 to guarantee an opening. Killing Godric gives us access to his Great Rune, which we're immediately gonna go and grab. Just a short run past the golems, making use of Assassin's Gambit and the pillars for cover, and we can can collect one of the strongest buffs in the game. +5 to all stats is insane in pretty much every context, but for this run, the main benefit that it provides is helping us reach the 15 faith required for Flame Grant Me Strength, extending our already stacked buff sequence. Now before every boss, I need to drink Physic, Cragblade, Golden Vow, and Flame Grant Me Strength, specifically in that order since it's longest buff first and shortest buff last. Next up is Radahn, and this was my biggest roadblock during this entire challenge. I did not know Radahn very well, and honestly even now, after practicing him a decent amount, I still don't feel very confident fighting him. On most playthroughs of the game that I'd done up until this point, I had so much damage that he would die almost immediately, and on the rare occasions that I didn't, I had scrambled through while chugging flasks and panic rolling. Obviously, this playstyle was not going to work on a run that demanded perfection. My one saving grace for Radahn was that our damage is so good that as long as you can get the stagger at the end of phase 1, you can kill him outright. No phase 2, no rocks, no drill attack. This greatly reduces the number of attacks that I need to know how to dodge. Once Radahn is dead, we quickly head over to Altus to nuke Gillica for the ritual sword talisman, which gives us another 10% damage while we're at full health, and then move on to tackling the capital. There really isn't much to say about this running section. It just boils down to spam Assassin's Gambit. There is one slightly scary moment where this soldier lunges at you, but as long as you stick to the right side of the hallway, he will never hit you. Godfrey is the next boss up, and on this run he's surprisingly scary. There's no scripted kill for him or method for making him completely consistent, so you just need to straight up fight him. This isn't too bad since he's a relatively easy boss and our damage is still insane, but things can go wrong very easily, especially if he chooses to stand in an awkward spot in this terrible laggy arena. Excuse me, what the fuck was that? In complete contrast to Godfrey, Morgott couldn't be more straightforward and consistent. The Shackle is an insanely strong tool for no-hit runs. Being able to script Morgott in particular is especially valuable since he's one of the more complex and difficult bosses in the game. Although he is one of the bosses that I'm actually good at, so I kind of would have preferred a Radahn Shackle. Then we have the very, very long run to Fire Giant, during which we upgrade our balls to +19 and do this interesting little strat while crossing the frozen lake, where we manipulate where the dragon spawns by going around this small island and then looping back when we hear his scream. By doing this, we're using the island to block his line of sight to us and preventing him from attacking. The Fire Giant fight itself is actually very straightforward on this run. Our damage is so good that the fight is scripted after his first attack. We break the ankle splint in a single charge heavy and then stagger him right afterwards, so he never has a chance to roll away. Phase 2, however, is a little more involved. It requires sleeping him straight away on the phase transition and then getting in 4 charge heavies on his left hand to stagger. The stamina management on this strat is surprisingly tight, and it makes it pretty difficult to get the scripted kill. It's not the end of the world if you don't manage to, but there is a chance you'll get screwed over by RNG, and Fire Giant will do his bullshit fire breath attack that bounces everywhere, and you'll have to Memory of Grace out and redo the entire fight. With Fire Giant down, we give Farum a demonstration on why Assassin's Gambit is the most OP shit in the entire game, and jump down into the Godskin Duo arena. I'm sure you know what's going to happen here. By casting Assassin's Gambit before activating the boss and then quickly backing up, we prevent the boss from even noticing us, making putting them to sleep even easier. Then it's just a matter of The one slightly tricky part of this fight is timing and aiming that second sleep pot on the respawning noble. If you're too close to him, too late throwing the pot, or aim incorrectly, you're very likely going to get hit. And my aim with a controller is terrible, so this is very, very scary for me every single time. With Godskin Duo down, we have the last bell bearing we need to get a +25, which I immediately go and do. It's crazy to think that the Godskin Duo kill I just showed you was only only with a plus 19. And on top of that, the iron balls are strike damage, which is the worst damage type against the duo. This weapon is just so busted. Before we make it to Malekith, we have the one and only threatening running section in this entire route, the bird section. This shit sucks normally, as I'm sure you're aware, but with this route, it's actually very, very consistent. After casting Gambit, we drop down and sit under this alcove until there's a gap in the lightning. Then we run and stand right on the edge of this roof. This is just barely close enough that we can hit the dragon with a mighty shot from our bow, making him despawn. And from there, we just cast Gambit, smash this bird, and crouch walk away. It's surprisingly simple. Before learning this, I really thought I'd be getting hit here a lot and resetting. What the fuck? But I actually never lost a run to the bird section, or even got hit here in practice. It's just that consistent. Before moving on, I wanted to quickly point something out. Do you see this here? That jittering that my character's doing when I'm crouch walking? That's caused by my very old and quickly deteriorating controller. At this point, the issue was manageable, but it will very quickly become a much larger problem. Look at this, man. It's just fucking walking forwards, like... I'm not touching anything. After sneaking past the Draconic Tree Sentinel, we've finally made it to Malekith. And I'm gonna be real with you guys here. I meant to be doing this whole strategy where you cast Glintblade Phalanx using Roger's Rapier, which does a ton of poise damage to force staggers and script the fight, but I fought Malekith so much that I just kind of buffed up and went in and fought him. I didn't really feel the need for uber safe strategies when I kill the boss in 6 hits. For Gideon, however, we're returning to the script because I'm absolutely not fighting Gideon 2 hours into a no-hit run. Oh my god, fucking discs! Fortunately, the script for him is incredibly straightforward. Simply stand behind him and wait for him to say, "What a sad state of affairs." Then 1 charge heavy, a long pause, and 2 more charge heavies. Fortunately, Gideon is a relatively easy boss to script with such high damage, since he always tries to debuff you when he goes below a certain amount of health, allowing for easy follow-ups after your first attack. Okay, now that the boss is dead, surely I can leave the boss room.
A tyrant cannot become a lord. Not even you. A man cannot kill a god.
We have made it to the run killer, Horaloo. This is basically the only boss that you fight in a way that somewhat resembles a normal run. Obviously your damage is still absurd, but Horaloo has enough health and poise to prevent any scripting. The most you can try to do is time your hits so that he staggers on the first attack of phase 2. This does enough damage that you can force his scripted triple stomp attack and end the fight right there. God just dominated. Unfortunately though, due to the Iron Ball's insane poise damage, you'll very often stagger him just before the phase transition instead. The only real strategy here is to know the boss well and play safe. Once Horaloo finally goes down, we can dump all the souls he drops into endurance, since we've already hit 99 strength by this point, and the extra stamina is very useful for our final boss, Radagon and Elden Beast. This fight is so scripted. Both Radagon and Elden Beast have a lot of scripted attacks at certain health thresholds. Radagon will always do his stomp and slam attack around 75% health, which we can get him below instantly by running up at the start of the fight and doing a couple of charge heavies. Another charge heavy after he lands staggers him, and that's Radagon dead. Just like that. It's insane to think back to my first playthrough and how difficult I found all of these bosses, now knowing that the capability to trivialize them to this degree was possible. Elden Beast is a very similar story. It always opens with a flame breath, allowing for a huge punish, and of course he staggers almost immediately, which lets us extend this damage window into killing him outright. It just looks ridiculous. And that's the route for the whole game. Now I just need to do it all in one go without getting hit. It had taken me almost 7 hours to learn that entire thing, but I was committed to making serious progress on the first day, so I kept going and started my first run. For my first actual run, I decided to do a no reset. No pressure, not expecting to get it right away, just going through the whole thing fully for the first time to get every strat locked into my head. Oh, I fucked it up, and I'm not really sure why. I had an issue almost immediately. I was messing up the DTS cheese. After having panicked moments where I ran away from a very alive Draconic Tree Sentinel, I tried aiming the Kukri slightly lower on the rock, and it worked. Yeah. Okay, I need to throw the cuckoo further right and lower. It was very useful to learn this early on, and nice that I learned it without getting hit in the process. I had one more little mistake while trying to grab Cragblade. Oh my fucking god. Huge mistake, which fortunately I managed to recover from. And then... Oh! I hadn't been careful about where I dropped from the ledge, and I stepped on the dog's head. It's gotta be one of the dumbest ways to get hit, but wow, did it etch it into my brain that I had to be careful walking through this section. It was very good that I learnt this lesson here, because after this, I never got hit in the Blue Dancer Cave again. Margit got destroyed, Stormfell went well, and Godric got fully scripted. Radahn was a panicked mess, but with a combination of good RNG and punishing his attacks somewhat well, I got the stagger at the end of phase 1 and made it through without getting hit. Nice! Then I spent 20 minutes failing this jump in Lane-Dell until I realized I was jumping from the wrong spot. Very cool. Gold-free was very slow and safe, but I made it through. Nice. Also, something that I noticed while watching these runs back is that I fight Goldfree and Godfree very differently for some reason. Even though they have the same moveset, I use light attacks for small punishes on Goldfree, where I use tap heavies on Godfree. It's really weird that my brain sees that they look different and thinks that they require entirely different punishes. Morgott got bullied again. Nice. Fire Giant got nuked and so did Godskin Duo, and then it was time for Malekith. Oh, that's so sad. Expecting a stagger at the start of phase 2, I went for an unsafe punish and got hit by the vortex attack. Getting hit here makes me look like such an idiot for not learning the scripted strat. But don't worry, I still didn't learn it, because as well as being an idiot, I am also stubborn. That puts us up to 2 hits. I got him on my second try. Fortunately, I made up for my terrible performance on Malekith with an almost perfect Godfrey kill. Where I actually got the stagger at the start of phase 2 and ended the fight immediately. This fight lasted all of 43 seconds. Radagon went down as scripted, and Elden Beast once again got mashed by the Iron Balls. And with that, I had finished my first actual run. I did it! Yay! It had gone pretty well. Only 2 mistakes that led to hits is very promising. And after this run, I was pretty confident that any attempt could be the run. Surely things won't start going wrong immediately on day 2. Day 2. I immediately started a run, and with my enormous amount of unearned confidence, I managed to make it all the way back to Radahn without getting hit. Nice. Alright, now this is the part I'm actually scared of, because I am not good at Radahn. And then this happened. That's a good opener. Oh, my severe lack of practice with Radahn had led to me standing in entirely the wrong spot on this attack, and getting hit by something that should have been trivial to dodge. Watching this back after having somewhat learned his moveset makes me cringe. This was a demoralizing hit after yesterday's instant success. It sort of brought me back down to earth and made me realize that there's actually quite a lot of things that can still go wrong, even in a run where so much is scripted. In spite of this, I decided to continue this run. Do I continue? I mean, I probably should, right? I knew that if I started resetting this early, once I did make it to endgame without getting hits, I would be out of practice with the bosses. Oh, I shouldn't have gone back for it. I doubled back slightly to pick up this rune on the floor, which I absolutely didn't need, by the way, and got hit by the awkwardly timed lightning pot that this soldier throws. I literally can't think of a more avoidable hit. No! If I just ran through without stopping like normal, he wouldn't have even attacked. You would think I'd be very frustrated with taking another hit so soon after the last one like this, but honestly, I think this was for the best. That sucks, man. What a stupid way to get hit. Okay, well, I'm never doing that again. The run is already dead, technically, so that's just a good learning hit. The run was already dead, so if I was gonna take a stupid hit like this, it's better that it's here rather than in another run. And just like the dogs in the Blue Dancer Cave, taking a dumb, unnecessary hit like this makes the section very memorable, preventing you from ever getting hit there again. The next stretch of the run was largely uneventful. Everything just sort of went to plan, which is great, and hopefully means I developed some consistency with this part of the run. The biggest mistake I made during this whole section is once again failing to sleep the respawning Godskin Noble. Oh boy, back at Malekith. Surely I won't get hit again. Okay, so here, this is a similar situation to yesterday. Surely he staggers here, right? Nope. That's crazy. No way that just happened to me. This looks so stupid on video, but I promise you when he jumped back into me to wind up the spin attack, it was a lot more disorienting than it seems. Realistically though, I can make all the excuses in the world, but the real issue is that I simply made a mistake and dodged the wrong direction. It happens, let's just hope it doesn't when I get here without having already been hit. God, what a fucking stupid hit to take. Alright, well, whatever. Oh, I got hit trying to do the fucking strafe. Why did I do that? Alright, never mind. Oh my god! Was I not out of the hitbox? What? Really? That's just... Okay, I'm sorry, but that one's fucking dumb. I gotta practice this from the save state, clearly. Oh. Oh my god, what the fuck happened to me? I'm not sure if this was a matter of not having enough practice with Godfrey or some insane mental block on his moveset, but I just kept getting hit. I pressed the wrong fucking button. He quickly became my most practiced boss after this, and I got much, much more consistent at fighting him as a result. I should stagger here. Yep. That's what happened last time. After finally taking out Godfrey, I managed to execute the scripted kill on both Radagon and Elden Beast and closed out the run with far too many hits taken. This was brutal, but after being so close to getting the run on day one, I decided against my better judgment to start another run rather than practicing for the rest of the day. I did the setup, killed Margit and Godric, and left it to pick up from there tomorrow. Day 3, I got hit instantly. Ah, yet another moment where my lack of Radahn knowledge is screwing me over. I did a bit of Radahn practice, and with a tiny bit more confidence than I had before, I started another run. Surely that's off. Yep. Yay, I actually managed to do the setup without getting hit. Very late roll for me. Nice. I had made it past my major reset point, but unfortunately I had to leave this run here for today. Day 4. On day 4, I got on feeling good about getting the run. We were past Radahn, who is easily my most inconsistent boss. Next boss was Godfrey, who I hadn't been hit on a single time. Things were looking promising. Baiting really bad moves here. Oh, no way, man. I should have just forward rolled it. I was like, what do I do here? I'm in a weird range. Oh, what am I doing? I was starting to think that maybe prepping runs the day before and then jumping right into them was possibly a recipe for getting hit. What a waste of like 2 hours. Dude, there's such a curse with like stopping a run before you, like at any point and then coming back to it the next day, I think. I feel like I mean, obviously it's happened 2 days in a row. I just come back on and immediately get hit to the next thing I have to do. I decided to continue this run on regardless until I made it to Horaloo, where I got hit in almost exactly the same way as I did during the Godfrey fight. Oh man. This was incredibly frustrating and led me to dedicate pretty much the entire rest of day 4 to practicing Godfrey. I needed to build up some muscle memory for dodging his moveset because clearly I was lacking the ability to correctly dodge even his most basic attacks. The practice helped quite a lot. I had solved my problem with his stamp attack and optimized the way that I'd fought him, making the kills much faster, which will in turn help me get hit less, since less time in the fight means fewer attacks I need to dodge, means less chances to get hit. A really good example of this was learning to dodge his earthquake attack at close range. This gives me 1 to 2 more openings than running away on an attack that he does pretty often. This meant that I got staggers a lot more frequently than before, since his poise never had the chance to reset. Feeling reasonably satisfied with my progress on Godfrey, I started another run. This is where the deterioration of my controller started severely impacting my play. Now it wasn't only making my movement jittery, but also frequently drifting, causing me to walk forward when I was trying to stand still. Even if this didn't directly lead to me losing the run, every time I would let go of the stick and continue walking forward, I would take a severe mental hit, like my controller was doing psychic damage to me. Ugh, I just need a new controller. This is fucking ugh. This run only made it up to Liurnia, where I had to leave it to be continued tomorrow. Day 5. Day 5 was the breaking point. Things started going horribly wrong. I got hit instantly at DTS after continuing the run from day 4. Please fall. Oh my god. Really, man? An extremely frustrating hit to take, since up until this point I hadn't been hit here. So I finally decided to learn from my mistakes and not do any more runs that I left a huge break in between. Every run from now on needed to be done all in one go. Slightly frustrated that I was now facing another hour of setup, I started another run, and not even half an hour in, this happened. Oh, that's so fucking cringe. What am I even supposed to say about this? It's such obvious bullshit that it transcends knowledge of the game. You could probably show this clip to a fucking caveman and he'd be like, oh, he totally fucking landed on that rock. I even waited on the rock specifically to avoid this glitch, which is something that I've been doing this entire time and has worked up until this point. My mental was in tatters after this hit, but what really put the nail in the coffin for the rest of day 5 was the fact that after the worst, most dogshit, unfair hit of all time, I had to do another hour of setup. I just want to be able to skip the setup. It's like the one thing that makes this like not super fun. It's just the fact that you've got to fucking set up for an hour every single time. Yeah, I mean you get like, I mean there's still areas obviously that you have to go through, and like, but it's the right ratio between areas and bosses rather than just like all just running and like mostly, you know, no thought, just running on the horse. Okay, I'm on this rock. Alright, just gotta let the game know that I'm definitely on the rock. Yay! I made it past the fucking setup. Oh my god, it only took like 2 hours. I had finally made it past the easy part. Surely nothing could go wrong from here on. Oh, fuck this game! I'm so done. Why is this inconsistent, man? I got hit by the fucking pots. I was not sure why at the time, but my strategy that I'd been using to grab these 2 crackpots from next to Godric's arena was no longer working. Not being able to face another hour of setup, I decided to continue this run instead. At the very least, this would allow me to practice some of the other inconsistent segments like Radahn and Godfrey. After taking out Godric as usual and grabbing the Great Rune, it was time for Radahn. And surprisingly, things went really well. I dodged his opener, hit all my punishes, rolled in front of him on his gravity attack to bait the follow-up like you're supposed to, and got the stagger to finish the fight in phase 1. This felt really good, like I developed some consistency and confidence in a previously inconsistent section for me, and I really needed a victory like this, even if it was small. As always though, my happiness was short-lived, and almost immediately following on from one of, if not my best Radahn kill, I got hit on Godfrey, in a very avoidable way. I just didn't roll. I was getting really sloppy at this point on day 5. The combination of playing for a long time without any breaks, the fact that 90% of that time was doing the same monotonous setup, and my controller constantly messing me up was taking its toll on my ability to perform. And if it wasn't demonstrated clearly enough by this Godfrey hit, I followed it up by getting hit on Fire Giant, who up until this point I had not been hit by on a run. This is such a terrible run. Like, this is actually dog shit. Reluctantly, I reset, resigning myself to yet another hour of setup. One very, very long hour later, and we are back. Nope. Don't get hit. Oh! That's just unreal. Never mind, fucking pot hit again. Desperately needing to take a break from my sanity, I quickly tested this section and figured out the problem was that I didn't stick close enough to the wall when running to the pots. Then I closed the game, which is probably something I should have done hours ago. After taking a few hours off to dwell and seethe, I came back and started another run, which was going pretty well until this happened. At this point, I decided that was enough. I needed to fix my problem with Radahn, and I desperately needed to order a new controller. So I ordered one, and in the meantime, I wasn't gonna do a single run, just practice. I started with Radahn, obviously, and after fighting him for a while, I realized something. As long as I managed to punish his opener correctly, I can just wait for his scripted gravity attack, reducing the number of attacks that I actually needed to learn down to just 2. This was massive for my consistency on this fight. I went from no hitting him maybe just over half the time to getting it every time as long as I got the stagger at the end of phase 1. And I figured if I didn't get the stagger in an actual run, I could just Memory of Grace out and try again. I also spent a little while fighting Radahn with damage off to try and learn his moveset better overall, just in case things happened to go wrong and I needed to dodge something off script. Once I felt reasonably confident with Radahn, I gave the rest of the bosses a quick once over and decided to call it there for day 5. Day 6. My new controller had arrived, and thank God it did, because at this point my old one had deteriorated so much that the run literally wouldn't have been possible, since any strats that required me to stand still, like backstepping in the Godskin duo fight or shooting at the dragon in the bird section for example, would not have worked. To start the day off and to warm up, I decided to do a run starting from after the setup. This went really well. My practice on bosses like Radahn If I get this opener, I'm pretty consistent about no hitting him. And Godfrey, who I'd previously really struggled with, had clearly paid off, and I managed to do this whole thing without getting hit. Also, the difference in controller was immediately very noticeable. Just feels so much better. It seems like my old controller was messing me up more than I thought. I was feeling decently confident after this. It was very easy to not get hit on the setup, and if I can not get hit on the rest of the run just like that, surely I can do it all in one go. Yay, I made a past setup. I think it's safer just to do this. I had never been this far without getting hit, and the nerves had slightly started setting in. I needed to focus up, so I paused the show I was watching on my other monitor. Serious shit. Fire Giant was a little scary in phase 2 when I missed the insta-kill, but I managed to recover after a very uncomfortable looking fire breath. Holy. God, it's scary when you mess that up. I probably need to be recasting, like, Flame Grummy Strength or something. I'm actually sweating. That was so scary. Then it was Godskin Jiro time. A fight that is generally pretty safe as long as you hit the second sleep pot. god, just go to sleep. That had no business being as stressful as it was. That was way too close. Clearly I needed more practice on that. The bird section went to plan, and then it was time for Malekith, the boss that I was still adamant on fighting in my own way. Despite not getting a stagger in phase 2 and getting the bad RNG again, I managed to pull through and send us into the final 3 bosses with 0 hits taken. I need to calm myself down, because it's like completely fine. If I don't get it here, I'll just do it again. And after almost messing up the Gideon kill, oh my god, why is he trolling me like that? It was time for undeniably the hardest boss of the run, Godfrey. At this point I was definitely feeling nervous, but I knew that if I just did the same thing that I'd been doing in practice this whole time, I'd be okay. Wow. Yeah, thought that might happen. It wasn't a very fast kill. I missed a lot of openings. I was out there looking terrified, but I didn't get hit. My heart is beating. Like, it's just going. It is going. No stalling, just fucking straight into it. Only one boss left. I buffed up for the last time and entered the boss room. Oh my god, get it. You fucking dickhead. Why am I... Oh, what a him. Oh! Let's fucking go, dude. All it took was getting the new controller. There it is, man. Elden Ring, no hits, any percent. I had done it. I beat Elden Ring without getting hit. In 24 hours, over 6 days, I went from knowing none of this to getting the run. And it wasn't too bad. Once you get the 3 to 4 difficult bosses down, this run is pretty straightforward, and a much more reasonable challenge for a regular player than you'd think. And on top of that, it was also pretty fun. I kinda get now how people can get really addicted to no-hit running. Once you get past the setup and actually start fighting bosses, it's really exhilarating. And even running through areas that you've been through hundreds of times becomes super engaging when the stakes are so high. So yeah, for an average player, no hit is surprisingly doable, and doesn't take that long either.